as previously stated, yep, we're going to have a test on Friday. Unit 2 test will be on Friday of this week.
So that's
11. Yes, ma'am.
Do you like somewhere to your schedule so I can put in the MSC over there?
That one. That one.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So today we're going to talk about graphing linear inequalities. Tomorrow we don't have class. Wednesday we're going to talk about graphing absolute value inequalities. Thursday we're going to review. Friday we're going to test. Okay, so that's the schedule for this week. Okay. So here we go. Okay. So graphing linear inequalities is really just 2 steps, but each of those 2 steps has a kicker quality to it. Okay? So the first step when graphing a linear inequality is we are going to get ready to graph the line, and we're actually going to graph the line here in step number 1, just like it was y equals mx plus b. It's not going to be y equals mx plus b, but we're going to think about it as if it were. In this case, with an inequality, it's going to be y is less than mx plus b, or y is less than or equal to mx plus b, or y is greater than or equal to mx plus b, or y is greater than mx plus b. Okay? So we've got those different ones, but we're all going to think about them as y equals mx. Okay? So the kicker for step number 1 in thinking about graphing the line is that it's got to be solid or dashed. And that is going to depend upon your inequality from the original problem. Okay? Now, for those of you that like to do their graphs in pen, okay, you're going to have some possible frustrations going on with this section, just so you are aware. Okay? So a solid line, that's not going to be very frustrating for us, but those are going to be the and equal, or the or equals part. So the less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. Those are going to be the solid line. And those, for you pen users out there who are still holding out, even though math is done in pencil, okay, you will be fine on that one. Okay? It's the next one, the dashed line, where it's probably going to be frustrating for you, because I'll go over here on the sideboard. Sorry, internet viewers, that you can't see this or hear about this, but you're going to draw your line, and you're going to be using pen. And you're going to draw your line, and then you're going to say, oh, it needed to be dashed. And then you're going to say, oh, now I got to go get white out, or I got to do the graph over again. Okay? Because if you had pencil, you could just take your eraser and make it be a dashed line. But with pen, that's very hard to do. Okay? So those of you that still use the pen, you might want to think about switching to a pencil very soon, because math is done in pencil. Okay? And so those are the greater than or the less than ones, are those 2. And that line is actually dashed. It is not a solid line. If you draw a solid line and then say, well, it's supposed to be dashed, I'm going to still mark it wrong, because it's not a dashed line. It literally needs to be a dashed line. Okay? The difference between those is when we get into step number 2, it's going to, the solid line includes the points that are on that line. The dashed line does not include those points that are on that line. Okay? So that is step number 1. We're going to get ready to graph. We're going to graph our line. It's going to be solid or dashed. And we should probably number 2, step number 2 says that I am going to, or that we, I should say we, are going to shade one of the 2 sides to our line. Okay? And yes, we need to shade the entire side. We can't be lazy with our shading this. Okay? The shading of either side of the line will indicate for us the areas or all of the points that make our inequality true. Okay? When we were dealing with a line, the graph of the line are all of the points that make that equation true. In an inequality, that's a huge area. And so we have to represent that huge area by shading in that area. Okay? Now, there are many different ways to do it, but my way takes the guessing out of it. Okay? And by no means do I think that my way is the only way. I'm fully aware that there are other ways out there, but I am a huge proponent of what is called the test point. Okay? And so how we go about doing the test point, or how we go about shading the appropriate side using a test point is, well, the first thing that you're going to do is you are going to pick any point not, and that's key, on your line. It has to be a point off of your line. Okay? That's the kicker. Has to be off of the line. Now, there are easy points to pick, but you can pick any point that you want. Okay? The easiest of the easiest of the easiest points to pick is the origin, because you have 0 and 0 for your x and your y values. Okay? So the origin is the easiest one, but if your line goes with the origin, you can't pick the origin. So then you've got to pick something else. Okay? And the next easiest would be 1, 0 or 0, 1. And then so on and so forth. But you don't have to pick any of those. You could pick any particular point that you would want. Okay? Step number 2 then says you are going to plug that point into your inequality. And we go back into the original inequality. The OI, if you will. Now, when you plug that back into your original inequality, you are going to get one of 2 possibilities. Okay? The statement that you have, the inequality that you have, is either going to be true or it's going to be false. Okay? So in part A, if you get a true answer or a true statement, then you are going to shade the point side of the line. If it is false, you are going to shade the opposite side. What I mean by that is this. So here is our graph. Here is our line. Here is our test point. Yeah? So if it's true, you would shade on the same side of the line. So you would shade on side number 1 of the line, because that's the side that the test point is on. If it's false, you would shade on the second side of the line, because that is the opposite side from the test point. And you'll see more of that when we get into it, into the graphing part in 2 slides. Okay. So let's talk about test points first. Okay. So the directions are: tell whether the given ordered pairs, and there's one underneath truthiness, are solutions of the inequality by plugging in a point into the inequality and finding the truthiness. Okay? So if I am going to test point the origin, 0, 0, that means I am going to plug 0 in for x, and I'm going to plug 0 in for y in my original inequality. Then I do some maths. 2 times 0 plus 4. 4. So I get the statement here that 0 is less than or equal to 4. Is that true or is that false? That's a true statement. So that tells me that the point 0, 0 is a solution. Which means that I would shade on that side of the line. 0, 0, the origin would be covered with my coloring, my shading. Okay? You now try this one. -2, 10. Two times -2 is -4. -4 plus 4 is 0. 10 is less than or equal to 0. Is that a true or a false statement? False. That is false. So this point is not part of the solution. Questions, comments, concerns, clarification.
So it would be shaded on the opposite side.
Opposite side, if this were our test. Okay. All right, here we go. Let's graph some. Okay. So I want to graph y is greater than or equal to -1/2 x minus 3. So the first thing that I am going to do is I am going to think about it as y equals negative 1/2 x minus 3. If I think about it as y equals negative 1/2 x minus 3, that tells me that my y-intercept is at negative 3. So the point 0, comma, negative 3. That also tells me that the slope of the line is negative 1/2, which means I would go down 1 and right 2. 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 Or I could go up 1 and left 2. 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 And up 1 and left 2. Before I draw my line, I should figure out if this is going to be a solid or a dashed line. What do we think?
Solid.
Solid. This is going to be a solid line. So now I can draw in said solid line. Remember that when we're drawing things, we like to use a straight edge because then when people bump our table, we don't make a mistake. Okay? It was all you. Okay? So we need to now do a test point. Which point would you like to choose for your test point? 0, 0, the origin. Now, for me, I like to put a little T on where my test point is. Okay? Or if you want to go TP, or if you want to do something like that, circle it somehow, I don't care. But I like to put that there because then that reminds me, okay, I'm on that side of my line. So we're going to test out the origin. 0 is greater than or equal to negative 1/2 times 0 minus 3. Negative 1/2 times 0 is 0, minus 3 is negative 3. Is 0 greater than or equal to negative 3? Yep, that's a true statement. So that means that I am going to have to shade on that side of my line. Okay? Which means I have to shade this entire side of the line.
A little part. Like, it'd be colonized. I like to figure it out.
So I got to shade that entire side of the line. Now, if you choose to do something along the lines like this, well, that'll be too, we'll go with this one. So if you do something like this, that's fine. I'm okay with that. If you don't want to fill it, if you don't want to color it all in, if you want to shade it like that, I'm okay with that. What I am not okay with is that. Okay? That doesn't tell me anything. Okay? We want to shape the whole side of the line. Okay? Doesn't have to necessarily be big, bold, and beautiful colors. Okay? But, if you want to get creative with it, get creative. Okay. Questions? Comments? Clarification? Complaints? I know we're grabbing lots of complaints. Okay? All right, try that one. Alright, so I'm going to think about this as if it were 2x minus 3y equals 12. And I need to graph it. Okay? So I'm going to subtract 2x. And that's going to give me negative 3y equals negative 2x plus 12. Then I'm going to divide by negative 3 everywhere. And that's going to give me y equals 2/3 x minus 4.
That's what it says.
Okay? So that tells me that I've got a y-intercept of negative 4, which is the point 0, comma, negative 4. That tells me that I have a slope of up 2, right 3, up 2, right 3, up 2, right 3, down 2, left 3, down 2, left 3, down 2, left 3. There we go. However, what kind of a line is it? It is a dashed line. So when we go to put it on our graph, we are going to put it on our graph in dashed form. Did we go through the origin? Did not go through the origin, so that could be our test point. 2 times 0 is 0. Minus 3 times 0 is still 0. 0 minus 0 is 0. 0 greater than just greater than 12. True or false? That is false. So we need to shade then on the no, let's go with flowers and daisies.
That looks like mine. It's like flip.
Yeah, so not.
And I agree.
And my line is dashed. Your line is not.
That's it.
Good thing you didn't do it with pen.
Yeah.
So if I were this week's homework, I'd be a 4-page homework packet, and you would be able to do everything in said homework packet since it's review, with the exception of number 13.